One. Hello and welcome to the Earth Medicine Podcast. This is your host, Celine Bilgin, and I'm thrilled to have Felicia Bender with us today. A little bit about Felicia. She is a practical numerologist, a certified pranic healer. She has her PhD in theater and is the author of 2 books, which I cannot wait to read the second one that just came out this year. The first one is Redesign Your Life. And the second is Ultimate Guide to Numerology and Master Numbers 11, 22, and 23. She's also a noted public speaker and a badass woman who will help you understand the power of numbers in your life, in your relationships, and how they can impact your future. She also writes, counsels, and teaches how to use numerology as a tool for spirituality, for intuition, and really understanding ourselves on a deeper level and the people around us. She is a contributor for the Elephant Journal, Numerologist, The Numinous, and she is the resident numerologist for Astrostyle. It is actually how I found Felicia and just fell in love with her work ever since. So Felicia, welcome. Thank you for being here. This is our second interview together.
I'm so excited. Our first one was so much fun. So we had to just, do a second installment. So
beautiful. So I know that you shared a bit about your story last time we spoke. For those listeners who have not heard of even numerology before, especially practical numerology, could you speak a little bit about your background and how you got into numerology?
Yes, because it really, I will say buoyantly that it is a cosmic joke that I do this, which is the fact that I am very pragmatic. I have a PhD. I am very much into the study of the human psyche, basically. And I have always been really curious about how our emotional lives affect everything around us, all of those things that, even being an actor, director would point me toward that. And yet we talked last time, the turning point for me, and it's interesting because even with people I counsel in numerology, in numerology sessions, and I'm sure just with your own personal experience, people can come into their calling and their spirituality in a gentle, incremental way, or they can come in with a crash landing. And I kind of came in with the crash landing, I have to say. And so my mother passed away when she was fairly young, when she was 59. And that was a very tumultuous thing for me. I had also married quite young to my professor at the time, had 2 children. And I was in my early 30s at the time, and I had never really questioned anything before that, consciously. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it just exploded, imploded, dissolved my entire being. I just didn't know what to do with that. My whole world changed. My marriage was kind of dissolving, even though it had been a long time since then that I would actually dissolve it. And so I went on this quite a gauntlet, and I started learning again. You talked about the pranic healing. That's when I became certified in that. I started reading everything I could about everything. I mean, intuition, mediumship, energy, the chakras, herbal, herbal medicines, everything that I could get my hands on. And yet I still felt this very real element of myself that was super intuitive. And yet I didn't have a container for that in a way that was serving me. And so that brings me to numerology. It wasn't until much later when I, really learned about all of these other things that I came across a book. Again, my worst subject is math.
Me too.
In the entire universe. And so I would never have picked up a book that was called Numerology, or Knowing Your Numbers. I would have gone, I would have thrown it across the room, but it actually found me. So it kind of jumped off the shelf, and it wasn't a book actually on numerology. It had some numerology in it. So that's why I could open it up without freaking out. And it just clicked for me. And it became this, so for me, being more pragmatic and then intuitive as well, it gave me again a tool that was an art and a science that works no matter what. You know, so you don't have to sit there and ohm in a corner and meditate for days before you whatever. I mean, that always helps. And you do start doing stuff like that anyway. And yet, for this tool, you don't need it, you know? And so it was this beautiful conduit into being able to define and express my own intuitive language through that system. And it's so ancient, and so where, you know, what could go wrong? so that's kind of the long story, but I think people sometimes appreciate the fact that it's not just one moment, right, that we have, because so many people, like, they're like, oh, I want that lightning bolt, you know, I want it. And it's like, I always say, hey, you know what? Have you ever known anyone who's struck by lightning? Because first of all, they usually don't live to tell about it. And then second of all, it's a dramatic change from that moment on if you get hit by lightning. I actually know someone who was hit by lightning, and she became an incredible healer after that. But, and yet, the process of doing it was a lot of hospital time and a lot, I mean, you know, we're talking down and dirty, right? So anyway, sometimes it's nice to see how things unfold, and that how things happen supposedly to us that are actually doors and avenues and openings, rather than tragedies and fiascos that we label them at the time, if that makes any sense at all.
Absolutely. It is these, and that's why you've mentioned before, it's a tool to understand and know ourselves. So I'm curious to know, what was it that you found inside of that book that really clicked for you? How did you kind of go, okay, this is the thing that made sense in my life?
For me, it was the book went over the life path number and the personal year number. And we'll talk a little bit about that today, because I love the personal year cycles. And if we talk about anything, we need to talk about that today, because we're going into a new one soon. So, and yet what it did for me is I did my own, and then I did, you know, those close to me, and it was so right on. I don't know how it works. And yet what it does is it gives you this really incredible canvas of this emulsifier of finally you go, I've always kind of thought that was me, but I always keep redirecting myself and talking myself out of it and giving excuses and being in denial and not stepping into it, not empowering myself in that. And if I saw it down in black and white, that this is what my soul signed up for, I'm like, okay, that really hits me on a deep level when I can see it right in front of me. It's what I've kind of always kind of known, but not had the verbiage around it, or not had it out in front of me in that way. And that's what did it for me. I just saw that it was just those key words. I'm such a word person. So key words and key elements that allow me to go back to that and align with that. Because you know how it is, Celine, when you are in your groove, you feel it. You feel you're in alignment, even if it's hard.
Yes, that's right.
Even if it's a really, you know, could be a devastating situation, and you still feel like, man, I got this. I know that this is training me. I know that if I can go through this with integrity, with love, and stand up at the end of it, I am so badass, I can stand up and do anything at that point. So it's this really cool way to pivot yourself, right? And to pivot yourself into kind of the fun of the challenge, right?
And we are designed to overcome. We are designed as adaptable human beings. And I just love your energy inside of this, because it's almost like a blueprint. So speaking of, then let's talk about personal years and the life path number, because the life path number is, if people have heard of numerology, that's the one they're most familiar with, but that's just a snippet of it.
Right.
So we spoke about the personal year. We're both in a personal year 9.
Oh, I'm not, but you are.
Okay.
So
Okay.
thank
Yes, I'm
God I'm
definitely in
not
year
this year.
9. So could you speak a little bit about
Yes.
personal years as a collective?
Yes, absolutely. Because I get super jazzy jazzed about this because it is such a great tool. This is a tool that I cannot live without at this point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically the concept is this. In numerology, we believe that we all go through 9-year cycles throughout our lives, from the time we're born until the time we pass on. And so the fun part is that if we know, which we can through numerology, the theme, I call it knowing the theme to our party. Know the theme to your party, right? So so that you can know what costume to wear this year, and you don't show up being super awkward, which most of us kind of, when we expect our year to be the same, we do show up awkwardly. We're like, is this apartment 205? Was this Friday? Am I supposed to be here?
Did I miss the train?
Right. And so the personal year 1 through 9 is basically the very, let me do the calculation first so that people know what they're in as we talk about this. So it's a very simple calculation. You take the month of your birth, which for you is November. I'm just going to use you as an example. I didn't even ask, but I'm going to. And then your day, which for you is the 14th.
Correct. Yeah.
So always remember, in numerology, we're always reducing very simply through addition to a 1-digit number. So November is an 11. Okay, now you're going to complicate it because 11 is is called a master number in numerology, the 11, the 22, and the 33. But in this scenario, depending on what school of thought, we're going to get the same result, but I just want to give you an idea. The 11 can either, some people believe that the 11 always remains the 11, no matter what. So you never reduce it, even in a calculation. So we'll do that with this one just for fun, right? We'll keep it as an 11. Other people would say that you add it up. So you do 1 + 1 = 2. So it can be an 11 or it can be a 2. So we'll just use the 11. So then we are going to add that number to your birthday, which is a 14. So we take the 1 + 4 = 5. So that's not complicated. So that's just a 5. And then we're not going to deal with your year of birth. We're going to put that to the side because we're doing the personal year cycle, not your life path number, right? So for the personal year cycle, we use this year if we want to know what our personal year is for this year. If you want to know what a personal year was for 5 years ago, you use that date. If you want to know what it is next year, we'd use 2019. So, but for right now, we're going to do 2018. So 2 + 1, 2 + 0 + 1 + 8 equals, voila, 11 again. So we're in an 11 universal year. So then we're going to add all this up, and that will be your personal year number. So for you, you've got 2 11s. So 11 + 11 = 22. And then 22 + 5 = 27. Then again, we're going to keep adding so that we reduce it to a 1-digit number. So 2 + 7 = 9. So I said it was going to be so simple, and then it wasn't because of the 11s. But again, for simplicity, you can always use a 2 rather than the 11 if that's more of your comfort zone. For this, it doesn't matter quite as much.
And your website has an article on how to do
absolutely. Yeah. So for you, that's a 9. So anyone out there, keep doing your addition, and it's always really good to know spouse, significant other, kids, friends, family, all that stuff. It's really cool to know that so that you know how to deal with them during any given year. Yeah. So the 9 is what you're in. So we'll talk about that at the end, because that's the end of a personal year cycle, right? So the number 1 is always going to be about new beginnings. It's going to focus on independence and individuality. It's often a very career-driven time. It's the end of kind of this 3-year push cycle time that we'll talk about as we go. It is very self-directed because you are setting up the rubric. You are setting the intention. You are planting the seeds that you are going to see grow for your next 9-year cycle. So in a 1 year, it's not a time to mess around, and bring in frivolous stuff and do things that you're kind of half-assed about. It's really time to make it happen. So a number 2 personal year is actually kind of designed as a little bit of a break for people. And sometimes if you're a type A or a real, achievement oriented, it can be excruciating because it's really focused on us rather than me. It's very highly emotion centered. It's love oriented, relationship oriented. It's testing you in patience and diplomacy. It's going to, it's kind of one of those years where stuff happens, but it's kind of 3 steps forward, 2 steps back sort of thing. And yet the highlight for it is great time to find your one, or up level the one you've got, really spend quality time with that. It's really time to step into yourself and define yourself within relationship, empower yourself within relationship. And again, there's so much more, but these are, just stamps for this. So the 3 after the 2 is all about self-improvement on every level. The 3 is about joyful self-expression, emotional sensitivity, creativity. This is a time to really upgrade yourself in terms of taking classes, getting into your whatever performance level you want, or just infuse your sense of enthusiasm and creativity into whatever you do. It's a really great year for travel, just for bringing the lighter things into life in a 3-year. And a 4 is all about after that fun and frolic. And usually what's fun too is you're bringing stuff in from the year before. So if you've created something and started building something, then in the 4 years when you can start to really bring it into the material world in a very real way. So the 4 is about long-term goal setting and about concerted effort. It's really about it's slow and steady wins the race, and you need a lot of endurance in a 4 personal year. A lot of people get to this point in the 4 personal year and say, please just let me out. because it just feels very rigorous, and it is if you're on it. And we can talk about the flip side of that, right? And yet, so then we go to the number 5 personal year. It's really all about freedom and change. Your theme song for the year is anything freedom related. Great time, super sexy, super sensual. It's like you're pig pen, only that's all pheromones, you're just like this super, people report that all the time in their 5 personal year. I don't know what happened. I've just been, I'm just in the produce aisle and people are hitting on me all the time. And yet it's all about really stretching your personal boundaries in that way, trying new things, inviting change into your life, because at the end of that year, something substantial will have changed for you. And so the 6th year after that is all about responsibility. It's a heightened year of responsibility, usually around home, family, that sort of thing. And it's a relationship evaluation time, really time to evaluate all your relationships. It's kind of a, should it stay or should it go, or should I stay or should I go, or, sort of theme song going on with that. And then the 7 after the 6 is very contemplative. It's a spiritually seeking year and an internal planning. It's a planning and processing time. And it's a really time to do some deep internal spiritually based work. And it's even though life will go on around you as planned or whatever, there's this deep excavation going on. And it really is a time for planning rather than action. Because the next year, the 8 personal year, is all about action And it is that it's the beginning of like a 3-year launching time for all of us when we start that. So oftentimes in the 7, we kind of get ants in the pants and we want to, keep going, but bottle some of that downtime because you'll need some as you go into the 8. So last year was your 8.
Yes.
You personally.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you after this how maybe you can offer some observations about how it showed up for you. So the 8 year is all about personal empowerment at the get-go, and then finances.
Yes.
So it's like how to materialize, how to really build myself in a better situation financially. And yet also it really does start at the basis of how do I empower myself? I can't empower myself to make more money if I feel I'm not worthy of it.
Absolutely.
Right. So on a very basic level, that's the focus of that year. And it's a hard taskmaster that year. It will not let up. It's like, you did that? Great. Let's try this. Let's try this.
That's right.
And you're going, hey, I got an A on that.
Yeah.
Can I have a little vacation? And they're like, nope, you can't, but you're doing great, but nope, you can't. So it's that kind of, and even just having that idea that you're not being punished. That it's really meant, it's like they're all up there going, oh, you're doing great. Now we're going to give we're going to get you ripped and in shape, man. At the end of this year, you are just going to be a ninja at this point. And then we get into the 9, and the 9 is the end of this 9-year cycle. It's always going to serve as kind of a punctuation mark, I find. And as we begin to look back at these cycles, you can look and go, oh boy, that was going on in my 9 and into the 1. It's kind of that shifting it's like, that's when I got married. That's when I got a divorce. That's when I graduated from school. That's when I had a baby. That's when I moved. That's, all of these things that really become pivotal elements to our life often will happen in these years. So it really is a time. Last year for you was making it happen, doing, acting, just making it go. This year is more about, I'm a visual person, so it's kind of like you're in the boat and you're in your 8 year, you're just you're making it happen with the paddle. And this year you take the paddle and you put it in the boat. You kind of sit there and see where the flow is going to take you. It doesn't mean that you don't act. It doesn't mean that you don't respond and do that. It's not like you're just sitting around. And yet it's more of a letting go. It's more of a surrender. It's a time to look back. It's almost like a retrograde time. As you're into astrology, it's a time to reflect and to go back and look at what you've accomplished for these 9 years and what you need to let go, what you need to complete, and then what you need to keep room for to move into this next phase. The tricky part is in a 9 year, ain't nothing clear. It's like you're walking in the fog and you're going the right direction, or you hope so, and you can't quite see, and so that where you've come from is where you want to leave, but you can't. It's that whole thing of having to trust and be in this liminal space, be in this place where you're just there with you for a moment. And for most of us, especially in our, phone-centric, technological, it's very difficult for us to be in with ourselves for any length of time, let's say, often for us. So that's where it poses challenges, especially when it's like, well, I know I need to let this go, but I don't have anything that's going to fill its place. So maybe I keep with the known bad thing, thinking that maybe the next thing is going to be even worse, but even though I know it's not, we start, doing that whole internal dialogue. So the 9 personal year is a time of letting go. It's a time of deep transition and often is a real bridge into, again, those new beginnings, the new you that is coming into play next year. So what was last year like for you? Tell me.
Honestly,
and you're 8.
If I knew that it was an 8, it would have made more sense to me. I was only until this year that I saw, okay, this is a year 9, and I really got into that mindset of this is when I'm letting go or doing major changes. As I've spoken to you, I moved cities and I did start school, and there are a lot of habits and thoughts and ways of being that I have let go of. And it has been difficult as well, but a worthwhile challenge. Last year, that was when I felt like I wasn't getting a break from life and this next new task and this next new accomplishment. And it was a year of accomplishment, and it was also very emotionally confusing as well, because I was asked to go deeper into my work and who I am in the world and how I want to be. And it was a difficult year, absolutely. And knowing that now in hindsight that it was an 8-year for me is powerful, actually. And then I look at year 9, and then the upcoming year is the themes are so in alignment. And I use this as a tool for my personal life, because this year would have been insane if I didn't know it was a year 9 for me.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
And what's really interesting, and I don't want to convolute things, and yet I do want to pull out the fact that you are a 9 life path.
Yes.
And so when we experience the personal year that is the same as our life path, I find it intensifies those core issues that we work with. And again, so it's one of those really intriguing things that it's kind of a no-duh, but I think it really does open my eyes, at least, to go, our 9 personal year 9 years ago is going to be different than ours this year, because we're at a different level of maturity. Absolutely. We're at a different level of, and so it's those building blocks, to look at where we were at that last 9-year cycle and what we're doing now, and yet also notice the same thematics often come into play. I mean, in each, in my pivotal 9 years, like I left relationships in some of those. So that was kind of a common theme for me. Astrologically, I've got everything almost in my 7th house of relationships, and all that. So you start really pulling things in together and making some sense and giving yourself some validation around, well, this is what my life is about. It's not just a detour, right?
I so appreciate that, because it's this confirmation of intuition that we have, and that's powerful. So I want to ask you, what about those, should somebody not begin something if they are in a year 9, for example? How do you go from, okay, this is the year of letting go, versus, should I start a new relationship in a year 9? Should I, could you speak about those kinds of thoughts that somebody listening might have?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, what I want to say, since I'm the practical numerologist overall, is that I don't feel, and I know some people would disagree, but I don't feel there's any cut and dried yes or no's, just like, in astrology, for instance, that, oh my gosh, you can never date a Scorpio if you're a whatever, I think that we can all, you can start something in a 9 years, basically what I'm trying to say. And yet it's good to know the caveats that might accompany that.
That's right.
Right? So I find that oftentimes people will begin something, but it's in a percolative stage. Like what you're doing is, from my basic, very rudimentary understanding, that you're starting some schoolwork, some classes and everything. That's not like, taboo in a 9-year, because that's going to formulate your trajectory and your flow into your 1. And I would think that as you're learning, because learning, right, is exploration. So it's not as though you are at a destiny and going, this is it, this is what I'm gonna, you are exploring right now.
That's right.
Right? And you're letting go of some other elements of your identity, of your geography, of other things, and you're mutating into this. So you are in a very interesting liminal space. What I also want to point out, in a kind of lofty way, is that I find those who are mindful and who are spiritually minded and who are really connected to their personal spiritual evolution, as you are, have an advantage here, because as you're doing this, you realize that this is percolating, and then you can move it into this one personal year that you will be in
Yes.
2019.
Yes.
And you can begin to foundationalize and clarify certain things, because right now I'm sure there are a lot of things that have not much clarity. You're just moving along and getting, just getting settled.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
In some way.
Yes.
And that takes time. And it takes time. So that's a beautiful aspect and element of this, to also understand that in a 9 personal year, and I really, really have come to emphasize this more and more. And it's this. People are like, oh my God, I don't want to be in a 9. Everything's going to change. I'm going to lose everything, and everyone feels it's this catastrophic horror show. And actually, when you're in it, and you are, as I think you are, I'm going to make an assumption that you're like, yes, I chose to do this. This is what my trajectory is. And I'm willing to just strip it all down and see what happens.
Yes. Yes.
It can be the year of dreams manifesting, of, dreams coming true in a way. And I use this example, but I think it's so powerful. I had a workshop one time. We were going over this stuff, and someone said, I said, so how many people are in their 9 year? And this one woman
reluctantly
put her hand up, and I was like, and everyone's like, oh, and I'm like, well, like Dr. Phil would say, like, how's that working for you? And I'll never forget it. And I use this example all the time. She's like, this is the best year of my life. And I'm like, really? Pray tell. Go on, tell us, please. And she says, I left my 30-year marriage that I've wanted to get out of forever. My only son has graduated from college, and he's out on his own. He's got a job. He's successful. He's moved on, and we have a good relationship. I moved away from my house and everything I knew because I wanted a fresh start. I moved at that point to here. It was Boulder at the time. I don't have a job. I quit my job. I don't have one, but I'm looking for one. And this is the best time of my life. Anyone else would be like absolutely in the depths of like, oh my God, a freak out. And she had no clarity. Her clarity resided in this absolute desire for this reinvention, and for her absolute trust in knowing that everything was unfolding as it would and as it should. And that's that tricky point to which we all have to get to, right? When is this? When are we holding on? When are we resisting? When are we doing that? Yeah. And when are we trusting and moving forward? And it was a beautiful way of encapsulating the energy of the 9 year, because as Shakespeare would say, and nothing is good nor bad, but thinking makes it so.
That's right. And I want to speak on that too, because I have this intuition of, if something new, like a relationship, or like for my case, a school or a career, anything is started in a 9 year, I believe that either the thoughts or the way we've done things before is also being shed.
Yes.
And I think that's so crucial. And there has been this piece, even though there isn't a lot of clarity and it is one step in front of the other, there is this piece of knowing that it's a 9 year, and things just happen so much more smoothly. Everything, I have gone through major transitions, and everything happens more smoothly for that.
Yeah.
So how can someone who is, has their own business, an entrepreneur, use numerology in terms of their business success?
Business, all of it is so, I love this stuff so much, because there's so many different levels in this Rubik's Cube, right? Because first and foremost, you just knowing your own your own personality profile through your full numerology chart, not just knowing your life path, but knowing, because in business, I find it's a combination, which it always is. And yet in numerology, we have a number called the destiny number, or it's also called the expression number. It is often what I find is more indicative of what you will do well with in a career. And so it's fun to look at that and how it mixes and matches with the rest of your chart. But it's in business, it's wonderful. For instance, if you're a 2 life path and you have a lot of that energy, the 2 is more of the behind the scenes person, the group oriented, the win-win, the mediator, not usually going to be happy, I don't want to say successful, but happy as a solopreneur. And so it's good to know that. It's like, it's not that you can't, it's that if you want to do that, how do you have a group work situation where you're not isolated? How do you understand about yourself? Because you can get into this depressive isolation and not even know why. Right. Or to understand that you need to outsource the negotiating.
Yes.
Rather than, or whatever it is that it is. And if you're a 1, know that, or have a lot of 1 in your chart, that you are more that pioneering, you are more of the entrepreneur rather than the 8, which is more of the CEO manager. It's a really interesting, different, subtle difference, but it's a wonderful thing to look at the 8s, and sometimes they try to start businesses, but they don't succeed as much as they would like to. But they usually, an 8 is usually much more successful at walking into an established structure of something, a franchise, a business, or whatever, and then being the CEO kind of energy, taking it somewhere. Where the 1 is more of the Steve Jobs, pioneering thing. And then it's good to know who to team with. Right? And so to empower yourself to know, or to even, I've done like team building things with companies and with work and with small businesses where we'll sit around and we'll talk about this kind of as a strengths finder, for the soul. And it's good to understand your coworkers and understand how to work with them, how their reward system goes. If you're a 4, you're the systems person, but you need some acknowledgement. So it's really good to understand where people thrive. And what they're, and how to work with them. And because we all want that, right? If we're working in a group, how do I do my best in this group? And how do I get along with people? And how do we bring everyone onto the same page, with the same mission, and use everyone's skills and talents, which is always a really interesting part. So on that level in business, it's just good to know your profile, to know where your strengths are and how to bolster those, and where your weaknesses are, and then how to, outsource those, how to have somebody else do them or bolster them on some level. And then you can also just numerologically, and this is the sidebar, we can look at your business name, and we can look at the numerology of your name and see if it's actually conducive to what it is you're doing. We can look at the address of your building or your office, or where your home office, and look and see how that is conducive energetically to what you're doing and what you're producing and what you want out of what you're doing there. And so numerology can really, in my opinion, just provide just a myriad of avenues for empowerment and for focus, right? For clarity and focus around certain things with your business.
I love that. So really anybody could work with you, whether they are a nurse or an entrepreneur, or they have a family, they are in a relationship. I mean, we're not set. We don't have a textbook of how to do life, but we have things like numerology to help us as a tool along the path. And for myself, it has been powerful. And I highly recommend people to book a session with you and to have, because I received, thank you for that, for a reading. And it's so incredible to look at the past year and look at the energies of the current year that I can work with.
Yeah.
So could you speak to us about some of the energies of 2019 that we can expect? And then I'd love for you to speak about your upcoming journal, for speaking of 2019, and where people can purchase that.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're just pulling out of 2018, which is a universal years. Basically, I'll give you an idea of what those are. I call it kind of the umbrella energy that all of us globally are working with. So the personal year is what we feel most intimately differently on an individual level. And then, you go one step up or out from that, and we're all dealing with this overarching energy, which is the universal year. And you just get that by adding the year together. So 2018 equals 11. So 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 8. We did that before. It's an 11 too. Next year, 2019, is a 3. So this year, basically it's been all about spiritual growth, painfully.
Growing pains.
Globally. Yeah. Well, it's interesting though, again, as we talk about perception and as we talk about change and transmutation, things have to dissolve before we can reconstitute, right? Mm. So it's about spiritual growth, illumination. Really, this year is focused, and I think we can see this across the board. If there's only one thing and one word that this year is about, it's about love. Mm. Mm. So the 2 is the love part. The 11 offers this whole other cacophony of stuff that goes with it. And yet I think we can really, really see that love is the big question mark right now. Mm. How do we love? Who do we love? What is love? And can we, we're just being so split and dichotomized, right? Mm-hmm. With that. And this year, slow progress, again, that 2, frustrations, delays that we're all, and yet it's really schooling us in our emotional acuity, right? Our diplomacy, our ability to see all points of view.
Even if we see the complete extreme opposite, right?
Exactly. No one said it was going to be easy. And that's the thing about these themes is it's really, I find that with me, I see it and I'm like, well, then I want it to happen now. Well, ask me how that's worked for me in my life. And yet, so you know what I mean? It's really upgrading our sense of love and connection this year. It has that opportunity. It's breaking things open. It's exposing them. It's offering up this chaos for reconfiguration. Yes. Right? So and then we're going to bridge into the 3. So the 3 takes all of that emotional acuity and patience and everything that we've been developing this year, and it shines a light on it, and it's going to ask us all to lighten up. Mm. And what's so funny? It's I think that we really struggle with this about all of us in general, that if things are bad, you have to act like they're bad, or it will invalidate your disapproval of their badness, right? And yet the highest form of resistance is to actually still stay light and joyful and moving forward in a meaningful and mindful way in the midst of it all, right? Even as things are, very difficult, it's wonderful to be able to, and it is an incredible form of resistance, to not succumb to the negativity, to not get sucked into that. So this 3 universal year is all about self-improvement globally. Beautiful. How are we all going to improve ourselves? And it's about creativity. I just think there's going to be so much creativity going on this upcoming year, about and on all levels, whether that's creative. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? So we've got so many creative ideas coming about how to deal with environmental issues, how to deal with all the issues that we're dealing with. Again, ain't going to be easy, but there's going to be so much infusion of that energy, and so much, it's all about communication. It's going to really start demanding that we're more impeccable in the choice of our words, that we are more mindful in how we express, how we communicate. And in our social media culture, in our culture where we can hide behind our devices, right? And kind of say whatever we want without any repercussions, basically. It's a really interesting time to be negotiating that, energetically and globally, I think. So it's going to really ask us to shine the light, get into our optimism, do the small, small things that bring us joy and that bring others joy, that inspire, that uplift, that bring things into a higher vibe in that way.
I love that. And I can see, us foreseeing themes in film, in, like you said, social media, in technology that enhance communication, or it'll be complete breakdown of how something works so that we can improve it. I love seeing these universal years and seeing, okay, this happened and then this happened. And it's powerful, because sometimes for this year, I think it's almost been the opposite of love. So we can come back to love and say, what is
right.
Really?
And yet, don't you think that so many people are coming? I mean, a lot of artists, even, I'm a big Sense8 fan. I don't know if you are, on Netflix, the series called Sense8. Oh my gosh, you have to watch it. So anyway, I don't mean to promote any shows or anything on here. It's just but again, we're really shining the light on love. And I think that so many people are even Stephen Colbert had this beautiful, he was at an interview with Oprah, and he was talking, it was so bizarre in some ways, because he talked about how he was being interviewed by somebody before he started his show, when he made that transition from his late night show to the bigger late night show. And they said, well, what are you thinking the focus needs to be? And Stephen Colbert, and his show. And he said, I want this show to be about love.
Wow.
And he said, and there are a lot of ways to express love and and it was just this beautiful. And even though, it's just, I think that we're all really bringing that into the front line, because at the end of the day, what's it all? I mean, if we were all to die today, what have you got? Other than love and relationships and the kindnesses that you have done and had experienced on your end? I mean, it kind of boils down to that.
Yes, I do think it is a glue that holds everything else together, this invisible, brilliant glue.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I did not know that he mentioned that. So you are in the midst of creating this journal for 2019.
I am, and I'm really super excited about it. I was inspired by the bullet journal, craze, and so many of my women friends were talking about how constructive it was for them to have this. So I'm getting working with a designer, and we're going to have a 2019 planner for the mystical minded. And so it will offer every month the basic monthly numerology. It'll offer you ways to write down your goals and aspirations. It talks about the repeating numbers, like when you see those. So it's just a really kind of fun, informative journal planner that that gives you not only the numerology information, but just lets you personalize it and to be creative and to really take yourself seriously in terms of how you don't really, it can all be up here in our heads, but when we write it down, it becomes real.
That's right. And then you have the tools that can actually put you into alignment.
Yeah. And just as a beautiful, gentle reminder, of what we're here for. And again, I just use this so much personally to be able to align myself with my, I'm in a 4 or 22 personal year, and I'm like running on fumes at this point. And, in the past you kind of get you're really negative. And I'm like, no, I can do it. I just have to do some self-care. I got to take that 20-minute power nap, and then I can get up and get it done. So it really it offers me a really great through line to align to and go, you know what? You need to get this done if you want this at the end, So it really, and again, but having the journal and having that just as those reminders, and for you to be able to doodle and write and keep yourself accountable in some ways. Yes. Or even just, it's so fun to look at the end of the year at something like that you started with and that you end with, and see where you've come. It's pretty cool. I like it.
I love that. I love that it's I was actually just looking at my old journals the other day. I was cleaning out and organizing, and I'm just looking at everything that actually happens when you do write things down, when you do have, this it is manifesting in action. It's a pre-manifestation, and when you actually set it down into action steps, and again you have the tools that put you into alignment, you know that you're in this kind of a month, this kind of a week, and you take action accordingly, and it's beautiful. So this is why numerology has been so helpful for me personally. So where can readers, listeners, really, where can they find you, and how can they work with you?
The best place is my hub of activity is my website. And that's FeliciaBender.com. You can get your free monthly forecast there. So I've got a lot of people who really count on those. I'm finding out, so those are accessible, every month. And I've got a YouTube channel, so there's videos there that are free access, that you can take a look at your life path number and some other elements there. I've got a couple books that you can get through my website, and you can order charts. So there's some products and books that a lot of people always ask me, I know this now, but now how do I protect myself psychically and energetically and all of that? So trying to get some more of that on the website to offer people, just some great resources to live this, to do this thing, because it's a lifelong process. It doesn't just happen in a weekend and you're done, So it's so that's really the hub of where you can get me. I'm also, again, on astrostyle.com, and I do a monthly column with them, and we're co-creating a book right now that'll be launched next year. So it's just a little tickler right now, but probably in July. And that'll be astronumerology, a very kind of user-friendly way. So what do if I'm a Scorpio life path 9, what does that look like? If I'm a life path 11 to, Aquarius, what does that look like? And so we're going to merge our skill sets and hope to offer some really practical, user-friendly advice on how to look at both of those together. So
I love that. Brilliant. And just astrology and numerology together is powerful energies. It's going to provide a lot of value, especially to people who around the world are waking up, and they are realizing that there is, tools that were used from the past to guide us. And this is why I love your work. I love the service that you provide, and really thank you for the work that you do in the world. And thank you.
It's just a pleasure. And you look so vibrant for being in the throes of your 9 personal years. I just have to hand it to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we will have the links below to connect with Felicia. Felicia, thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Have a great rest of your year.
Thank you. Bye.